Hello and welcome back to the channel. I am finally back with an update about my Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 chambered in 10mm. If you saw my previous video, you know that the screws for my Optic on the back here sheared completely off, and the Optic literally hit me in the head, causing me to bleed. As a result, I sent the gun back to Smith & Wesson, and they had it for about a month. They removed the screws, didn't throw any extras in the box back to me, and sent it back dirty. Well, anyways, I wasn't planning on doing this video, this gunsmithing video, until I removed the safety. So this is the only portion which I'm not going to show on camera, is the removal of the safety. But I will walk you through that process as to what I did to remove the safety. So here's an update. After this video, I will be taking her back out to the range and putting various different types of ammunition through her. So as far as removing the safety, you can see this pin on the back of the slide here. You take the gun apart, obviously. This gun is unloaded. And to take it apart, you just drop that lever. Push it forward, or rack it forward. Either push down the yellow pin before you do that inside, or just squeeze the trigger. I usually just squeeze the trigger. So you drive out this pin on the back of the slide. I like to drive it out from this side to this side and then put it back in from this side to that side. I don't know why, I just do. So anyways, you drive that pin out and you remove this whole sear block on the back there. So when I remove the sear block, because it's a little bit tougher, it's a little tough to pull out with just your bare hands. If you have much stronger hands than I do, you can probably accomplish that. But I had to kind of wedge it out, wiggle it a little bit, and I made the mistake of using my Spyderco knife here, which is metal. Ideally, you probably would want to get like a piece of wood or plastic in there, because I did make a dummy mark in my slide, which is not a big deal. Probably won't focus, but I'll roll in a picture of it. And it didn't even take that much pressure. I just, it fits, the width, that width right there fits in just perfectly right underneath that block. And just a little wiggle popped it out, and I was able to get the block out. But once you get the block out, the safety levers themselves, this whole piece just falls right off the block. And then on this side of the gun, that side of the block I should say, there's a little piece with a spring that sits in there, held in by the spring obviously, and that is the part that holds the safety into the on and off position. So what you want to do is just take a thumbnail and just dig that piece out, and be careful because that spring will go flying because it is under tension. Remove it carefully, and that's pretty much it. You line up the trigger bar into the channel on the other side of the block, and you pop the block back in. And getting everything lined up is a little frustrating, and right when you get to the point where you're ready to throw it against the wall and give up on it, give it one more try, and it pops into position. It clicks right into position. And then you just drive that pin. I like to drive it in from this side, like I said, drive it back into position, and that's it. That's as easy as it is. Now, when you remove that safety, you will have gaps on either side of the frame. They do manufacture frame plugs, which you can call Smith & Wesson, and they will send you a set for free. It's just a matter of timing it to where they have them in stock, and right now they haven't had them in stock. I don't know if it's because they released the new 10mm, and they're the same frame plugs as the M&P 45, because it is the same frame. And so I went to a aftermarket company, USA Guns and Gear, and I found a set right and left frame plugs delivered for $13 and change. I saw them on eBay and various other sites for $40, $50, $60, I think $70, as high as $70 on one site. But USA Guns and Gear sent me the set for $13 and change shipped. So I highly recommend checking them out for they sell a ton of different types of gun parts for all different types of firearms. So yeah, easy removal of the safety. Frame plugs pop right into place. And 10-15 minute job. And I absolutely hate gunsmithing jobs. I hate working with any type of small parts because I chopped a finger off on my left hand, and it's just a pain in the butt for me. But it's much cheaper to do all the small gunsmithing type stuff myself, rather than send it out to a gun shop pretty much every other week for the stuff that I do, and the expense as well. And I also am going to be polishing out the feed ramp and the chamber, try to get this scratchiness taken out of that trigger. See what I can do about that. Alright, so with the flitz polish and my rotary tool here, I use these makeup applicators to take the flitz and apply it to the end there, the felt end. And I have the rotary tool on the lowest setting, so I'm just going to go in there and kind of, it's a little bit, the end here is a little more narrow than the chamber itself, so I'm just going to go in there on the lowest setting and just kind of move it around a bit. That was a little too deep. And after about 30 seconds, I'm going to check my work. Alright, so you probably can't see it on the camera, but the chamber came out fairly decent. Now, I'm going to do the feed ramp, so I'm just going to take one of these makeup applicators, just a dab of the flitz right onto the feed ramp, and I'm going to take one of these tapered bits, and I'm going to just work it up and down there, trying to get the edges and the entrance to the chamber. Polish on it. And another part that is concerning to me, because the rounds I did have a malfunction on seem to be pointed up, so there's a little, right where the loaded chamber indicator is, which is a hole in the top there, I'm going to polish out, I'm going to get a smaller tip bit, and I'm going to work this section right in here to see if I can smooth that out a bit. Alright, so with a little more flitz up top here and the smaller bit on the rotary tool, we're going to work that section a bit. Make sure all the edges are smoothed out. Alright, I feel like I got the ramp and surrounding edges pretty well, but I got a smaller bit on top of the rotary tool there, and I just want to get to this little section a little bit more. But overall, it's coming out fairly nice. And ideally, you would have a vise for this job. Yeah, that fits in there much better. And for the record, the only rounds I had a malfunction with out of the 5 or 6 different types of ammo I put through her with the PMC Bronze 200 grain. And I've heard from many people that they also have issues with the PMC Bronze and 10mm through their 1911s and various other 10mm handguns. Alright, so let me finish up polishing up the chamber and feed ramp, and then we'll get to the trigger, try to polish out that scratchiness. And once again, a vise would be ideal for this type of task. Now, some guns you will have the trigger bar here that comes into contact with the bottom of the slide there. So in that case, and this one never comes into contact with the slide. If it did, I would polish the top of this trigger bar here and also polish the inside of the slide here where it would interact with, right up top there, to get a good polish on both of them to take the scratchiness out of them. Like I said, in this case, they do not interact. So I'm going to continue with the polish of this and the top of that plunger, and we'll get it back together and see if that takes the scratchiness out. Alright, so polishing out those components did not get rid of that scratchiness. But good to know, I do not have to slide out the rear sight to get to that piece. the plunger. So I can just remove this, being very careful because that spring is under tension, remove all that stuff, polish out the inside of the slide and that component. But unfortunately, I don't have anything that is small enough to fit that. So that is definitely going to be a project for another day. And until then, let's cover the reinstallation of the Swamp Fox Justice using a metal plate and better screws from C&H Precision. Alright, so I ran to the hardware store and I got a small driver bit kit. I wanted to take care of that striker block plunger before I got the dot on top, because if I waited, then I would have to remove the dot, you know, get at it then. So in order to do that, before I pop this screw out, I'm gonna have to take the back plate off and the striker out. So what you do is you put a little tension on the plastic sleeve forward, and then you can slide the back plate right off. And then what you want to do is give a little more forward pressure and hit that block down so the striker will clear. And then you can pull the striker right out the back. There's the striker there. So now at this point, we can pull the striker block. And this is also under spring tension. So when you remove this screw, you really want to keep pressure down so it doesn't go flying across the room. And with my fat fingers, it's kind of tough to squeeze them in there. So once you feel the tension kind of relieve, it's not going to fly out at this point. On my old M&P, the back sight would sit on top and would hold it down, and there was a plastic piece that went on top of the spring and then the plunger for the block, or the block itself. So you have this this spring that fits right into a little, I don't know, nipple or whatever you would call it, that holds the block down. You can just punch that right out once the spring and that other piece is off. And yeah, this was kind of hard to get out, so I suspect there may be a burr or something in the boring through the slide. So I'm going to have to get in there with a magnifying glass and see what I can see, and see if I can buff it out and give this piece here, which is the block itself, a really good polish. So let me get at that. I'll let you know what I find, and we'll see if we can solve that scratching issue, and then we'll throw the sight back on it. To be honest with you, I really don't see much as far as a burr. Might be just a fitment issue. So what I'm doing, because I really don't want to go at this with the rotary tool motor and damage something on the inside there. So what I'm doing is taking one of these stones and just kind of hand polishing the edges. There's two levels of edges within this bore. So I'm just kind of trying to work the edges a little bit, and then I will get in there with the rotary tool with a felt tip and kind of with a little flitz and just try to polish the edges out a little bit. But I don't see anything as far as a burr or whatnot, and hopefully if there is one that I can't see, because I'm just using this little magnifier because I'm getting old and my eyesight's going. So I may be missing something that's in there. Hopefully this stone works it out. I'm going to work as much of both sides of the edges as I can get, and then try to polish it a little bit. Alright, so I decided to go with a tapered felt bit at the end there. That way I can work the edges a little bit more. So once again, with my makeup applicator, which I can't recommend highly enough, it's foam there, so it's not going to leave anything behind like a cotton swab would. Just put a little bit of the flitz on the tip there. When you're using this stuff after you're done, you really want to get in there and clean it out very, very thoroughly. And I'm just going to go very gently because I don't want to damage that plastic sleeve that's in there for the striker. Trying to get as much of the flitz to spin off before I go a little bit deeper, because I don't want it to get into the striker channel as well. And I'll work the top a little bit. I really don't want to go too much. Alright, so now I'm going to apply a little more and try to polish out that striker block. Alright, let's see how this tapered bit works for the... And once again, a vise would be ideal for this job. And with it out of the gun, I can really work all edges of it. And Apex does make an aftermarket block for these guns, which has a lot more rounded surface to it. On this portion here, it's really rounded. So when the trigger bar interacts with it, it's got a much easier, less resistance. I would never attempt it like this outside of a vise if I was taking material off of anything. But this is just a polish with felt. Let me continue this a little bit more, and then I'll come back to you when I'm ready to put it back in the gun. Alright, I've done what I think I can do. So what I'm going to do is reinstall it in the gun. The striker block plunger back in there. Oops, sorry. Gotta go that way. Alright. Now this part is the not so fun part, especially for the digitally challenged. So you gotta get that spring down the channel, line that one screw up at the hole, apply pressure down, and then sink that screw back in. Which is easier said than done. And I can't believe it, I did it on the first shot. Oh, don't speak too soon. Bueno. Then you want to throw the striker back in, and to sink it all the way past the block, you just press that down. Come on forward. Make sure that it's working. Yep, it's going past that block. And then you want to hold that forward to get the plate back on. Try to do it before my thumb gives out. It's a little trickier than it looks. Come on now. It's got the channel, and it's got the grooves on the side of the plate, but it is kind of a bitch to get back in there. Okay, let me hold that sleeve forward. You would think, since you get everything lined up, that it would go right in, right? Ah, gunsmithing. Come on now. So I'm digging my front sight into my table. There she is. Come on now. And my pizza's ready. It would help if I put it the right way, right? There it is. Alright, so pushing the plunger down. Yep, the striker does come forward. And she also blocks it from coming forward when it's up. Perfect. Alright, let's get this baby back together and see if that solved the scratching issues. If not, then I just give up and I'm going to live with it, and hopefully it works itself out through the course of firing. Okay, moment of truth. Son of a motherless goat. Yeah, I was playing with the plunger while I had it before I put it back together. And I did work out the amount of grit when you press on it from the center. Nice and smooth, but when you push on it, where the trigger bar interacts with it, it's pushing back on the side of it and trying to catch that edge. And so when you push back on it and push it down, you still have that grit. So I would really need to get in there or bring it to a professional gunsmith who knows how to really polish that out. Or I can just get the aftermarket Apex striker block, or I can just live with it. Wait for it to polish itself out. All right, so now we're gonna install that Swamp Fox Justice. And what I've got going here is a little bowl of acetone, 100% acetone, to clean everything off. So I'm gonna basically give these screws a little acetone bath. Then I'm gonna pull them. And just give them a rub down with a, guess what? A makeup applicator to remove any excess acetone without leaving anything behind because they're foam. The acetone dries pretty quickly when it's exposed to air. Now I'm going to take the applicator, clean the screw holes in the top of the slide as well. Then I'm going to do the plate. This is probably a little excessive, but after what happened in my first video, I'd rather be safe than sorry. If any debris from the factory or from shipping or from packaging or whatever. Alright, so those are pretty much dried already. I'll take a dry applicator and just kind of run it over the top of the slide. Alright, so we're going to let that dry for about 5 minutes and then we're going to move on to step 2. Alright, so C&H Precision sends this, what I'm assuming is Vibratite VC3 along with the plate and the screws. A lot of people are using Vibratite these days. It's advertised to hold like a red thread locker, but it removes like a blue thread locker. So I'm going to give it a try. And you really don't need that much of it. I think this little packet would probably do, I don't know, 100 to 1,000 guns. You want to apply it to the bottom half, to the bottom 3/4 of the screw, and guess what I'm going to use to apply it. So I'm going to take the screw, squeeze some out onto a paper plate. Just a couple drops should do it. And you want to get the bottom of the screw more so than the top of the screw. It actually smells like pipe glue or pipe cleaner. I used to work as a plumber in my younger years, maybe a little bit more. So once you get the Vibratite on, they recommend that you let it cure for about 30 minutes. So I should have done this step before I did anything else. But through the magic of editing, we'll skip those 30 minutes. Do the second screw here. Alright, so while I'm waiting for those to cure, I'm going to go on to the next step, which is to take some Loctite super glue and super glue this metal plate down to the top of my slide. Yeah, right, just kidding. Just seeing if you're awake and paying attention. I'll see you in 30 minutes once those cure, and we'll put that Swamp Fox Justice on top. Alright, so the Vibratite has set up, and I used the little tool that came with the Swamp Fox to get the screws started. And then I'm going to finish them off with my Wheeler fat wrench set to 15 inch-pounds. It is a 1/4 inch bit for the fat wrench. So we'll go down to 15 inch-pounds. It's supposed to be magnetic. To make sure I have the proper torque. Alright, so that should be it, 15 inch-pounds. Now this gun is ready to go. I'm going to let the Vibratite set up overnight, and then tomorrow I will be taking it to the range and putting some rounds through it. That will be in the next video. And I did get my custom-made Faltac Unlimited Kydex holster. Thank you, Iggy. Check out their website. They do custom Kydex for guns, knives, all types of stuff, laser engraving, white privilege cards, all types of stuff. Check them out at faltacunlimited.com. We'll see you at the club.